evening, viewers. You're watching Sansad Television, and this is the news. Your one-stop 30 minutes of top international and national stories, including sports and business. But first up, we take a look at the headlines of the day. India raises strong objection to WHO's estimates on COVID deaths in the country. Health Ministry questions validity of models. Asserts India has a very strong system for registration of births and deaths. Prime Minister Modi reviews heat wave management and preparedness for monsoon. Instructs officials to be ready to deal with any situation. Delimitation Commission signs final order on delimiting assembly seats in Jammu and Kashmir. Proposes to increase number of seats from 83 to 90. Difficult to stop infiltration without cooperation of local administration, says Union Home Minister at BSF program in Bengal. Inaugurates the BSF floating post. Conspiracy to disrupt Amarnath Yatra foiled. BSF discovers cross-border tunnel on the border. In a separate incident, huge amount of explosives seized in Haryana's Karnal district. Now let's take a quick look at some important news in our flash segment. From 1st of October, power subsidy in the national capital will be given only to those who want it, says Delhi Chief Minister. Nominations for Padma Awards 2023 will remain open till the 15th of September this year. UN's World Food Programme in discussion with India on procurement of wheat as countries face food security challenges amid Ukraine conflict. 4 suspected arms couriers arrested in Haryana with IEDs. Investigation underway into the Pakistani link. Union Minister Jitendra Singh calls for comprehensive manual for pensioners to ensure further ease to retired government employees. Of 82 lakh deaths in 2020, 45% did not get any medical attention at the time of death, says Registrar General of India. Internet suspended in Rajasthan's Bhilwara after attack on 2 youths. Health Minister Dr. Mansukh Mandavia inaugurates 3-day Swasthya Chintan Shivir Health Summit in Gujarat. India to be country of honour at the Marchereau film to be held alongside the Cannes Film Festival in France. Tamil Nadu Chief Minister says centre has assured to consider Chennai as embarkation point for Hajj pilgrims. The Jammu and Kashmir Delimitation Commission on Thursday signed the final order for the delimitation of the Union Territory. The panel, headed by former Supreme Court Justice Ranjana Desai, met on Thursday to finalize the delimitation order for the Union Territory. According to the delimitation order, out of the 90 assembly constituencies in J&K, 43 will be part of Jammu region and 47 for the Kashmir region. Previously, the Kashmir division had 46 assembly constituencies and Jammu division had 37 seats. 9 assembly constituencies have been reserved for the scheduled tribe, out of which 6 are in Jammu and the remaining 3 in the valley. Names of some of the assembly constituencies have been changed, keeping in view the demand of local representatives.
तो जो 90 अपनी एसीज हैं, उनमें से जो 43 हैं वो हमारी जम्मू रीजन में हैं और 47 जो हमारी कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंसीज हैं वो वैली रीजन में हैं और 5 हमने जो बनाई हैं पार्लियामेंट्री कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंसीज बनाई हैं और उसमें ये बड़ा ध्यान रखा गया है कि सभी पार्लियामेंट्री कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंसीज में इक्वल नंबर की असेंबली कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंसीज हैं। इतिहास में पहली बार 9 सीटें शेड्यूल्ड ट्राइब्स के लिए रिजर्व करी गई हैं, जो कि जम्मू एंड कश्मीर रिऑर्गेनाइजेशन एक्ट के हिसाब से करी गई हैं और उसमें से भी जो हैं 3 कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंसीज जो गई हैं हमारी जो वैली में हैं और 6 जो हैं जम्मू रीजन में की गई।
For more information on the Delimitation Commission's final notification, let us go across to our correspondent Teena Jha. Teena, what in your view are the important points of the delimitation report for Jammu and Kashmir?
Good evening, Rashika. So, the Delimitation Commission, which was tasked with redrawing the boundaries of assembly as well as parliamentary constituencies for the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, has finally, released its order, and also a gazette notification was released today after their meeting and after the order was released. So after due consultations with members of all political parties, all the associated members, as well as civil society groups and citizens of the Union Territory, the Commission has proposed increasing the number of assembly constituencies from 83 to 90. And of these 90 seats, the Jammu division will now have 43 seats, so which means up by 6 seats. The current number is at present 37. And for the Kashmir division, the number will go up by 1. So the current number is 46. Now there will be 47 assembly constituencies in the Kashmir division. And for the first time, Rashika, 9 assembly constituencies have been reserved for the scheduled tribes, which means there will be 6 in the Jammu division and 3 in Kashmir, as well as 7 assembly constituencies will be reserved for the scheduled castes. Interestingly, the Commission has also recommended provision of at least 2 members, which will include 1 female from the Kashmiri migrant community into the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly, and whose powers will be similar to the nominated members of the Puducherry Assembly. So as far as the important points go, some of the salient features of the delimitation order, these are the highlights, Rashika, of the order that's been released.
Teena, also tell us what has the Commission recommended for the parliamentary constituencies?
So if you talk about the parliamentary constituencies, Rashika, there will be 5 parliamentary constituencies in Jammu and Kashmir, which is a union territory now. And of these 5 parliamentary constituencies, the names are Baramulla, Srinagar, Jammu, Udhampur and Anantnag Rajouri, which has been carved out by combining the Anantnag area of the Kashmir Valley and Rajouri and Poonch areas of Jammu. So there will now be 5 parliamentary constituencies, and all of these parliamentary constituencies will have equal number of assembly constituencies, that is 18 assembly constituencies each.
Thank you, Teena, for that information. Now moving on. Prime Minister Modi returned home on Thursday after his visit to Germany, Denmark and France. On the last leg of his 3-nation tour to Europe, the Prime Minister reached Paris from Denmark. He held the summit-level talks with the French President. Prime Minister Modi and French President Emmanuel Macron discussed bilateral and global issues, including Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the situation in the Indo-Pacific region and terrorism. The two leaders also discussed ways to advance the India-France strategic partnership. A joint press statement after the meeting said India and France reiterated their commitment to prepare for the challenges of the future together by enhancing mutual cooperation, expanding into new areas, and further expanding international partnership. Union Home Minister Amit Shah on Thursday inaugurated the mobile border post of the BSF at the Hingilganj in West Bengal. Amit Shah also launched the boat ambulance at these floating border posts. The ambulance will provide medical assistance in inaccessible areas. The Home Minister also inspected the facilities for soldiers on the Narmada, Satluj and Kaveri floating border post. Earlier, addressing the border Prahari Sammelan on the Indo-Bangladesh border, Amit Shah said it is difficult to stop infiltration and smuggling without the cooperation of the local administration.
जो इतनी बड़ी फेंसिंग लगाई है, चाहे बंगाल की सीमा हो, चाहे पाकिस्तान की, चाहे गुजरात की, ये फेंसिंग कभी भी देश की सुरक्षा नहीं कर सकती है। देश की सुरक्षा मेरा बीएसएफ का जवान ही कर सकता है। मगर हम सीमा पर है, हमारे अधिकार है सीमा की सुरक्षा के, संविधान प्रदत्त अधिकार है। इसका उपयोग करते हुए ये पूरे क्षेत्र को हम अभेद बनाएं, घुसपैठ से भी और तस्करी से।
The Home Minister had lunch with BSF Jawans in Haridaspur. Amit Shah also laid the foundation stone of Maitri Museum at Haridaspur, Birbhum, and inaugurated the Friendship Exhibition. BJP leader Suvendu Adhikari and Union Minister Nitish Pramanik were present on the occasion. India has questioned the estimates released by the WHO on the deaths due to COVID-19. It has also pointed out flaws in the mathematical models employed to arrive at the estimates. The Health Ministry said that the WHO's method is flawed in view of the availability of the authentic data from India. The validity, reliability, and methodology of data collection are questionable. WHO has estimated that India had over 47 lakh deaths due to COVID in 2020-2021. The ministry said despite India's strong objection to the use of mathematical models, WHO did not adequately address its concerns. Prime Minister Modi on Thursday reviewed the state of monsoon and heatwave preparedness in different parts of the country. It is noteworthy that the mercury has been rising in many parts of the country, with temperatures reaching 45 degrees Celsius in many cities. At the same time, there has also been heavy rain and rain alerts in other regions. Sources said the Prime Minister was given a presentation on the steps to combat the situation. Prime Minister Modi also attended the meeting after returning from a 3-day visit to the 3 European countries. In other news from across the nation, the Supreme Court will hear on May 10th petitions challenging the constitutionality of the colonial-era penal law on sedition. On Thursday, it gave more time to the central government to file its reply on the matter. President Ramnath Kovind appealed to students and citizens to contribute in nation building. He also urged state governments to adopt the goals of sustainable development. The president was speaking at the convocation ceremony of the Mizoram University. While praising the current ecosystem for startups as well as ongoing development efforts, he said it is necessary to take care of the environment. Chief of Army Staff General Manoj Pandey called on Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu at the Vice President's residence on Thursday. Construction company L&T bagged a major contract for the bullet train project. This includes construction of high-speed ballistic-free track works on a 116-kilometer route for the Mumbai-Ahmedabad high-speed rail project. The contract is worth Rs 2,500 to 5,000 crore. Union Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia praised India's efforts to check the third wave of COVID-19. Inaugurating the 14th conference of the Central Council of Health and Family Welfare at Kevadia, Gujarat, he said the states had effectively implemented all the central instructions. The third wave had seen a lockdown in many countries of the world. The BSF claimed that it foiled a conspiracy by Pakistani terrorists to disrupt the upcoming Amarnath Yatra in Jammu and Kashmir. According to the BSF, a 150-meter-long tunnel was detected along the international border in Samba district. The tunnel was recently dug from the Pakistani side.
आने वाले दिनों में श्री अमरनाथ जी की यात्रा होनी है, उसको देखते हुए ये एक बहुत बड़ा काम हुआ है और ये बहुत बड़ी एक सफलता मैं समझता हूँ कि हमारे ट्रूप्स ने ये दी है, जिससे सुरक्षा, देश की सुरक्षा, नागरिकों की सुरक्षा और हिंटरलैंड में भी सुरक्षा बनी रहे, उसमें एक अहम कड़ी के आधार पर ये टनल को खोजा गया है.
We'll take a short break here and be right back on the other side with some more news stories.
मोहब्बत के लिए थोड़ी है ये जिंदगी, नफरत के लिए वक्त लाऊं कहां से मैं. तसव्वुफ ही वो रास्ता है जो पूरी इंसानियत को इस मंजिल की तरफ ले जाता है. तसव्वुफ को और जानने के लिए, और गहराई से जानने के लिए, और दृढ़ता से जानने के लिए आइए संसद टीवी पर.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching the news. Now let's take a look at all the latest developments from the war front in Ukraine. And in all the latest updates from the conflict in Ukraine. Ukraine says Russia is trying to destroy its remaining soldiers hauled up in the Mariupol's Azovstal steel plant. An army statement said Russia resumed the offensive with the support of aircraft in order to take control of the plant. The statement came as a Russia-announced ceasefire was due to begin at the besieged plant, where hundreds of Ukrainian soldiers and some civilians have been trapped for weeks. Ukrainian President Zelensky has called for a prolonged truce to rescue the nearly 200 civilians and fighters sheltering in the bunkers of the Azovstal steel plant. Russia said its forces will halt hostilities at Azovstal and open a humanitarian corridor for 3 days. Russian energy giant Gazprom says it will use the onshore capacity of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline for domestic gas needs. In February, Germany halted approvals for the gas pipeline project, which is designed to double the flow of Russian gas direct to Germany. Russia has expelled 7 Danish diplomats in retaliation to Copenhagen expelling 15 Russian diplomats last month. Moscow also objected to Denmark's military assistance to Ukraine. France has said European Union member states will reach a consensus on how to end Russian oil imports by the end of the week. It added that while some countries are more dependent on Russian oil than others, there was a need to find solutions so that they can come on board these sanctions. Ukraine's Ombudsman for Human Rights has said that 221 children died and 408 injured since the start of Russia's invasion on 24th of February. It added that it is not possible to establish the actual number of dead and wounded children due to the fact that occupying forces are actively fighting in the Ukrainian cities. Mexico will not join others in imposing sanctions on Russia over the war in Ukraine. Its President López Obrador said his country wishes to maintain a position of neutrality and has expressed this to the United Nations. Mexico has condemned Russia's invasion but has refused to follow the US and other countries in implementing sanctions. Now some news from other parts of the world. And from news across the globe, strong to severe thunderstorms lashed many states in the US are developing overnight on Wednesday. Footage showed multiple tornadoes forming near Oklahoma. A tornado is believed to have touched down outside Oklahoma City, causing damage and trapping some people briefly. There were also footage of damaged homes with exposed attics and insulation blown out. Colombia extradited the alleged head of the feared Gulf clan to the United States on Wednesday. Known by his alias O'Donnell, he was the country's most wanted drug lord before his capture in October 2021. The Colombian president said he is comparable only to Pablo Escobar, referring to the late former head of the Medellin drug cartel. The former rural warlord had stayed on the run for more than a decade by corrupting state officials and aligning himself with politicians. Parade rehearsals took place in Moscow late on Wednesday ahead of the upcoming Victory Day march in the Russian capital. Video from the Russian Defense Ministry features military personnel and military vehicles passing along Red Square. According to Russian media, more than 11,000 troops will take part in events for Victory Day, held annually on May 9 to mark the end of World War. Workers erected a fence around the US Supreme Court on Wednesday night, following protests outside the building earlier this week. Protests broke out after a draft opinion from the Supreme Court was leaked, indicating that the justices would overturn the landmark Roe v. Wade decision and allow individual states to ban abortion. A fierce landstorm choked Iraqi capital Baghdad on Thursday, sending dozens of people to hospital with respiratory problems and halting flights. Visibility was massively reduced and most of those braving the streets wore surgical masks. Authorities at the airport said on Thursday flights were halted due to extremely low visibility. Some shopkeepers in the capital immediately closed their doors and fewer cars were seen on the streets. A volcano in Hawaii is erupting a steady stream of lava after a period of intermittent pulsing. The latest eruption began in September, but until recently had been stopping and starting every few days. Now the pulsing nature of the eruption has ended and a steady flow of lava is once again filling the volcano's crater in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. The flow has been non-stop for more than 2 weeks. Scientists with the US Geological Survey said while the volcano is ultimately unpredictable, the current activity shows no signs of slowing and some historic eruptions have lasted decades. The volcano has formed a lava lake more than 300 feet deep. The global hunger crisis is exploding, and the war in Ukraine is sending prices of key staples even higher. Food insecurity increased at least 25% spike last year. A report by the Global Network Against Food Crisis has warned that global hunger will deteriorate further this year.
Almost 193 million people across the world don't have enough to eat each day, according to a new report by the United Nations. It also said that the number of people experiencing food insecurity has increased by 40 million in 1 year, and that it had worsened in 53 countries. The report has blamed climate change, wars, and the COVID-19 pandemic for the situation. The United Nations says acute hunger has risen in the last 6 years. Major food crises are at an all-time high, especially in countries like Afghanistan, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Ethiopia, Nigeria, South Sudan, Syria, and Yemen, that have all been experiencing protracted conflicts. The Russian-Ukraine conflict has also put African countries at risk, as they are reliant on both countries in the conflict for wheat supplies. The UN Food and Agriculture Organization has forecast that in 2022, Somalia could be badly hit due to prolonged drought, persistent violence and increasing food prices, putting the country's population of 6 million at risk of acute food insecurity. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
Underlining the ironic contrast in the world we live in, at a time when global hunger is increasing, nearly 60% of Europeans are reported to be overweight or living with obesity. This is the conclusion of a new report by the World Health Organization that also says a high body mass index is the most significant reason for cancers and cardiovascular diseases.
In Europe, over 1.2 million deaths are caused each year by being overweight and obese. A new report by the World Health Organization estimates that 59% of all Europeans are overweight or living with obesity. COVID-19 has only made the situation worse. The pandemic restrictions made lifestyles more sedentary. Staying at home meant less exercise for a lot of people. People with obesity also had worse outcomes from COVID. There were more ICU admissions and also more deaths. The situation is even more worrying for children. Data shows that 1 in 3 European kids is overweight and obese. Obesity is a direct cause in 2 lakh new cases of cancer per year. It is also associated with diseases like musculoskeletal complications, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, besides at least 13 types of cancer. Causes for obesity, experts say, are sedentary lifestyles, coupled with easy access to cheap and rich food, and children lured by ads for foods that are high in fat, sugar and salt. The WHO also blames the low rate of breastfeeding in the European region that lowers protection from being overweight and obesity later in life. The WHO report also calls for effective policy changes to combat the situation. Some options, experts say, could be high taxes on sugary drinks and sugar-sweetened beverages. Restrictions also on advertising for children and equitable access to high-quality obesity management services. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
Now let's take a look at the action news from the sporting world. Let's start with cricket today. In the 49th match of the IPL played at Pune, Royal Challengers Bangalore defeated Chennai Super Kings to get their campaign back on track after 3 successive losses. Batting first, RCB put on 173 for the loss of 8 wickets. Chennai Super Kings were going strong in their chase, but RCB bowlers gained control mid-innings and restricted the defending champions to 160 for 8. Harshal Patel took 3 wickets for RCB. In football, the Masters of Champions League comebacks this season have done it again. After doing it in the round of 16 and the quarterfinals, Real Madrid have done it again in the semi-finals. Manchester City had almost got both their foot and their body in the finals, leading 5-3 on the aggregate in the last minute of regulation time. But Real Madrid somehow conjured 3 goals between the 90th and the 95th minute to turn the tie on its head and win the semi-final 6-5 on the aggregate. Moving on to tennis, Rafa Nadal returned from an injury layoff to beat Miomir Kecmanovic 6-1, 7-6 and reached the last 16 in the Madrid Open clay court tournament. Nadal, competing in his first match since March following a rib injury, quickly found his rhythm. The 35-year-old Spaniard hitting with explosive power sealed victory in just under 2 hours. Nadal will next play qualifier David Goffin. Greece's Stefanos Tsitsipas cruised into the last 16 in the Madrid Open with a 6-3, 6-4 win over France's Lucas Pouillet. The number 4 seed will next face Grigor Dimitrov after the Hungarian easily put away Argentina's Diego Schwartzman 6-0, 6-3. Sebastian Corda of the United States lost 6-4, 6-3 to Lorenzo of Italy. The qualifier is set to face off against number 2 seed Alexander Zverev in the next round. And ending the segment with a sports memorabilia record auction. The shirt worn by Diego Maradona when he scored 2 of the most famous goals in soccer history was sold for £7.14 million. That is $8.93 million, marking a new auction record for an item of sports memorabilia. Maradona wore Argentina's number 10 shirt in the 1986 World Cup quarter-final against England in Mexico. He put his team ahead by punching the ball into the net for what became known as the Hand of God goal. Maradona's shirt has broken the record of original autographed manuscript of Olympic Manifesto from 1892, which was sold for $8.8 million in 2019. Before we wrap up, the headlines once again. India raises strong objections to WHO's estimates on COVID deaths in the country. Health Ministry questions validity of models, asserts India has a very strong system for registration of births and deaths. Prime Minister Modi reviews heat wave management and preparedness for monsoon. Instructs officials to be ready to deal with any situation. Delimitation Commission signs final order on delimiting assembly seats in Jammu and Kashmir. Proposes to increase number of seats from 83 to 90. Difficult to stop infiltration without cooperation of local administration. Says Union Home Minister at BSF program in Bengal. Inaugurates the BSF floating post. Conspiracy to disrupt Amarnath Yatra foiled. BSF discovers cross-border tunnel on the border. In a separate incident, huge amount of explosives seized in Haryana's Karnal district. That's all we have time in this bulletin. Please stay tuned to Sansad Television for more updates. Good night.